aux mains des terroristes. Comme l'a déclaré le président Obama, ce qui arrive n'est pas seulement une attaque contre Paris, pas seulement contre le peuple de France, mais une attaque contre l'humanité et les valeurs universelles que nous partageons. Daesh a revendiqué les attentats. Nous sommes encore en train de rassembler des informations, mais nous n'avons à une conclusion différente. La France est le plus ancien allié de l'Amérique. Notre amitié remonte aux premiers jours de l'existence de notre pays à travers 2 guerres mondiales jusqu'au remarquable partenariat qui existe aujourd'hui entre nous. Que ce qui liait les États-Unis à la France, de l'alliance étroite dont nos gouvernements jouissent depuis des siècles. Même dans nos heures les plus sombres, et particulièrement dans les heures les plus sombres, les États-Unis et la France sont unis comme 2 doigts de la main. Et c'est pourquoi nous offrirons à la France tout le soutien de droit de la main. Et c'est pourquoi nous offrirons à la France tout le soutien dont nous sommes capables pendant qu'ils traquent les monstres qui...
Like France,
l'un de nos 2 pays est à la fois profond et inébranlable. Pour moi, il est aussi personnel.
It's also a personal question, and the ambassador of the United States is working tirelessly to help American citizens affected by this tragedy, and our governments are working closely together in order to identify American victims, and we know that there are Americans among the wounded, and we will continue to give every kind of consular assistance. This morning I was at a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Fabius, who's here. And I also spoke with the Ambassador of the United States in France, Jane Hartley. I stressed our resolve and that we will support their efforts at all times. We stand together with France, like other nations do, in our indignation and in a feeling of great sadness. We stand beside France to express our deeply felt condolences to the hundreds of people directly affected in different ways, at different levels, by these acts of hatred. And more than anything, we stand together with France and the rest of the world in our resolve to eliminate the scourge of terrorism from the face of the earth. And believe me, this resolve has grown in strength on the day following this beastly barbarity.
I want to make sure that it is absolutely crystal clear that the United States stands with France and the rest of the world in our resolve to eliminate the scourge of violent extremist groups from the face of the earth. And make no mistake, that resolve has only grown stronger in the wake of this unspeakable brutality. And I think Sergei Lavrov and Stefan would agree with me that today in the meeting there was a broad-based sense of revulsion, of horror, and a deep commitment to do more to try to bring an end to the violence of the region and of the world. It is respect for life and for its possibilities that drove our efforts today in Vienna, and frankly every day in our pursuit of reconciliation and peace. The war in Syria, now in its 5th year, has already left 1 in 20 Syrians wounded or dead. It has compelled 1 in 5 Syrians to flee as refugees. It has displaced half of that country's population. And all the while, the chaos unleashed by the war has created a haven for Daesh and other terrorist organizations to thrive. If neither the dictator, Bashar al-Assad, nor the terrorists are the answer, and they are not, our challenge is to create the conditions under which a clear and broadly accepted, viable alternative can emerge. In the United States, President Obama has set forth 3 interrelated goals. First, defeat Daesh. Second, stabilize the region. And third, support a political transition to end this civil war. And those are not in order of priority. If you have to do one before the other, they can be done simultaneously. The events in Paris underscore the threat that Daesh poses to all of us in the region and well beyond it, unfortunately. This is a major reason that President Obama has announced new steps to take on Daesh militarily. But we also know that Daesh cannot be defeated in the end without de-escalating the underlying conflict in Syria, which attracts fighters to this battlefield. And that will require a political process, and that's why we are here in Vienna yet again. Today, Sergei Lavrov and I and Stefan joined representatives from the Arab League, China, Egypt, the European Union, France, Germany, Iran, Iraq, Italy, Jordan, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the UAE, the UK, and the United Nations. And we did so because we all recognize the urgency of the moment. There can be no doubt this crisis is not Syria's alone to bear. The impacts of this war bleed into all of our nations, from the flood of desperate migrants seeking refuge within the region or in Europe or beyond, to the foreign terrorist fighters who make their way into Syria to join the ranks of groups like Daesh, to self-radicalized fighters living among us, their minds poisoned by Daesh's propaganda and lies. Now, obviously, those of us who met in Vienna today, the International Support Group on Syria, do not agree on all the issues when it comes to Syria. We still differ, obviously, on the issue of what happens with Bashar al-Assad. But we are relying on the political process itself, led by Syrians, which it will be going forward, and with Syrians negotiating with Syrians, that can help to bring a close to this terrible chapter. We do agree on this. It is time for the bleeding in Syria to stop. It is time to deprive the terrorists of any single kilometer in which to hide. It is time that we come together to help the Syrian people embark on the difficult but extraordinarily high imperative of rebuilding their country. I underscore, we did not come here to impose our collective will on the Syrian people. Exactly the opposite. The Syrian people will be and must be the validators of our efforts. The Syrians will be the first to tell you that they need help from the international community, especially a consensus about how to achieve a political transition that will allow them to ultimately shape their own destiny. Building that consensus has been our goal here in Vienna. In fact, building the structure, the pathway to be able to achieve that. And while a lot of hard work obviously remains, we have made critical progress. Together, our nations have reached a common understanding, still beyond where we were 2 weeks ago, regarding a series of steps that we believe will accelerate an end to the Syrian conflict. Certainly can accelerate it if people take advantage of this opportunity. Based on our shared belief in the necessity of a ceasefire and a parallel political process pursuant to the 2012 Geneva Communique, we today discussed and laid out a path towards that political process and ceasefire, and towards it on as rapid a path as possible. We agreed on the need to begin formal negotiations between representatives of the Syrian opposition and the Syrian regime under UN auspices, with a target date of the two sides actually sitting down, negotiating with each other, no later, hopefully, than a target date of around January 1st. That's pushing. The group has agreed to work with Special Envoy de Mistura to assemble the broadest possible spectrum of the Syrian opposition, chosen by Syrians themselves, to define their negotiating positions and determine who their representatives to the talks will be. We agreed on the steps outlined in the 2012 Geneva Communique present the best path forward towards an actual political transition. And we support a Syrian-led transition process within a target of 6 months that will establish credible, inclusive, and non-sectarian governance, set a schedule and a process for drafting a new constitution, and determine eligibility for voting and candidacy in elections. We also agree